Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles. And you know how I said once that the weekend is usually pretty boring and it's hard to dig up news? Ooh, not this weekend. There's so much going on. It's incredible. And so I'm going to make this one, and then I've got another one that I'll make too for Sunday, because I tell you folks, there's just so much news. I have to just keep pumping these out as fast as I can. Okay, and before I even start, you will notice that Justice Ginsburg is trending because she's in the hospital. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the peanut's not going to be shelled. Maybe it's going to be Weekend at Bernie's is going to come to an end. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I do think we've got some kind of major funereal distraction coming up soon. And I think that will probably be tied to the timing of the release of the IG report. We'll see. Anyway, so that's the first thing I wanted to point out to you. The second thing I wanted to point out to you is that there was this big hullabaloo about Trump and that he was in bad health and everything. Well, you know what? This is a statement from his physician, and it says, he just went for his interim checkup. That was it. He went to Walter Reed. That's what he did. And everybody blew it out of proportion and thought that he was dying because of it. And they started spreading these rumors. And it's like, no, this guy's in really, really good shape. And check this out. I mean, they even gave some of his labs here, and he has a total cholesterol of 165, which I wish mine were that low, and HDL of 70, an LDL of 84, and a non-HDL of 95. Sounds to me like this man's in good shape. And it says, despite some of the speculation, the president has not had any chest pain, nor was he evaluated or treated for any urgent or acute issues. Specifically, he did not undergo any specialized cardiac or neurologic evaluations. So just wanted to put that out there in case you hadn't heard about it. I didn't really hear about the hullabaloo. I actually saw that photo first, and I thought, well, gotta share that with you. So anyway, we're going to talk about Rudy in this one, and whew, there is a lot to talk about because Rudy has been unleashed. Okay, he's been sitting in the wings for a long time watching what was going on, and he'd give little bits and pieces, but if you've seen him on the interview shows lately, he is letting stuff go. He is making sure that everybody knows what the deal was. And there was a lot of dirt he dug up in Ukraine, and it's all legit. Okay? So remember who Rudy is. Rudy used to be mayor of New York City, but he also was a prosecutor, and he prosecuted some big name mob bosses. So be aware of that. Anyway, so that is one reason why I think Donald Trump has chosen Rudy to do part of this, because Rudy is a great crime fighter, according to the president. And if you haven't watched that Fox and Friends interview with him, it was really good. And he said some major stuff in there that the 17th letter of the alphabet pointed out, and I already caught it when he said it the first time. So, yeah, well worth watching. And if I remember, I'll put a link to it down below. Anyway, so yeah, Rudy's got credentials, and especially when it comes to fighting corruption, because that's what Rudy is good at. And so he said, this is why Ukrainian President Zelensky was the first to bring me up on the phone call with POTUS, because he knew that. He was aware of it. Then he put this down. He said, Biden said, Lindsey Graham will regret his whole life. This reminds me of Biden's decree to the media to silence me on September 29th. Now a threat to a U.S. senator. This is getting to be more and more like my old mafia cases. They sure do sound like crooks. And I tell you, he has just been putting them out here. And here's another one. He had an exclusive. This was with Ed Henry on Fox News. And, there's so much happening. And here's an article, Adam Schiff connected to both companies named in the $7.4 billion Burisma U.S.-Ukraine corruption case. Yep, there's an article there. And if Shifty says it's just a coincidence that he is invested in the same companies that got $7 billion in laundered Ukrainian money, will you believe him? Well, maybe if he stepped down until he was investigated. If I was independent counsel, I would be quick and fairer than Mueller. And according to evidently, Peter Strzok's idea of what's fair, I think we should put Rudy Giuliani on some of these juries. But anyway, here's another one. Tom Fitton put this out. New documents produced to leftist group show State Department has evidence of Biden Burisma Ukraine corruption uncovered by Rudy Giuliani, DOJ, and Congress should follow these leads. So it's all starting to break. This I wanted to point out to you because this is a letter to Lindsey Graham. And he says, these witnesses have direct non-hearsay evidence of Democrat criminal conspiracy with Ukrainians to prevent Donald Trump from being president and more. Taylor's embassy is uniformly refusing them visas. Now, it looks like there's just 2 pages, but there's actually 4, and that's what we're going to go over in this one. Now, you have to pardon me because it is in my photo program because it's a photo, so I couldn't find the source document, so we're just going to go with this. But its navigation is a little more fun for me. And so here we go. So this is to Senator Graham. I write to you to ask your help on a very urgent problem. As the Schiff frame-up moves forward based on inadmissible evidence, including double hearsay, rumors, guesses, surmises, questionable overhears, and a hysterical Trump-hating media, there's a very real set of crimes crying out to be investigated and, if necessary and appropriate, prosecuted. They are being ignored and covered up. Now, I like the way he says, if necessary and appropriate, prosecuted. So he is wanting it to stay within the law. And you can see that very clearly here. This is unlike what's been done on the other side of the aisle, because for them, they just want it prosecuted even if there is no evidence. In my opinion, a huge difference there, and that really is what's going on. So here's what he has to say. There are at least 3 witnesses who have direct non-hearsay evidence of Democrat criminal conspiracy with Ukrainians to prevent Donald J. Trump from being president, with the alternative to remove him from office based on contrived charges. This has been most recently established by Mark Zaid, the discredited anonymous informant's lawyer, who called for a coup 10 days after the January 2017 inauguration. These witnesses have oral, documentary, and recorded evidence of the Biden family's involvement in bribery, money laundering, Hobbs Act extortion, and other possible crimes. They do not seek anonymity, like the disappearing informant. I like the little jab there. They desire a visa, and it will not be granted by Ambassador Bill Taylor's embassy in Kyiv. The ambassador apparently has been too busy starring on midday soap operas, providing us with inadmissible second and third-hand information, including guesses and surmises, some of which I personally know is false because his information about me is largely untrue. This is understandable, however, as he has never met me or spoken to me about my legal work defending my client against false charges. Frankly, he seems not to care or possibly not understand. And this is something to consider, too. Why is it, if this was going to be an honest look into what Trump was doing, Schiff should have called in Rudy Giuliani? I mean, he should have had to come in and answer questions. And if he would have, but Schiff didn't want that. Going on, in any event, under Taylor's predecessor, whom President Zelensky agrees was bad news, and that's talking about Yovanovitch, visas were denied to many who possessed evidence of Democrat, embassy, and Biden corruption. Some witnesses went even so far as to hire a lawyer, and as far back as October 2018, presented the United States Attorney's Office with their information about Ukrainian falsified information to affect the 2016 election, and the exercise of influence by Joe Biden in exchange for payments to Hunter Biden and Devon Archer. This lawyer was suspiciously never contacted again. Now, he is willing to share with you his memorandum and email. I would add that he also is a well-respected former United States attorney. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, it's getting interesting here. This is huge. And I don't know if you've ever traveled abroad. If you're in the United States and you want to go to certain countries, now I don't know the list of them right now, but there are certain countries that you can't travel to with just your passport. You have to have an actual visa where they check you out, and it's an extra little thing that's put onto your passport, like a little stamp or something like that. And so it is something different. So it takes a little bit of time. It usually has to go through the embassy. So for them, if they're in Ukraine and they wanted to come to the United States, they most likely would had to have gone to the embassy to get this visa. So that's who it had to go through. Well, look who was running the embassy, Maria Yovanovitch. Did she like Trump? No, I don't think so. And if you want Fiona Hill, oh, there are connections with Fiona Hill, and we'll have to talk about those one of these days. You know, they are all connected. They really are. You find out this person worked for that person, and you know, he whose name shall not be named, he worked for somebody, I can't remember who it was, like Mueller or somebody along those lines. So he had connections back in. I mean, it's like incestuous. They're all there working with each other and part of each other, and they all know each other, and they're all focused on the same thing, the same goals, which is to take our country down. And it's pretty much globalism is really what they want. They want everybody in the world to be one. And obviously they think they're going to be the people in charge. That's the way it always works, you know. That's the lie of socialism and communism. The people at the top are the only ones who benefit. Anyway, going on. These witnesses and others are ready, willing, and able to come to the United States and inform us of the corruption, election interference, and other crimes Americans committed in Ukraine in 2016. However, our embassy is uniformly refusing them visas. It is my duty as the president's personal counsel, in order to defend my client against another set of false charges, to bring these exigency circumstances to your attention. Although I understand the reluctance of the Senate to hold hearings in the past, and I appreciate the strong support from Senators Johnson, Grassley, and Kennedy, the Senate now has an additional duty to protect the office of the presidency from the damage predicted by Alexander Hamilton from an impeachment becoming entirely partisan. Our constitutional balance is under attack by partisans not trying to do justice or follow the Constitution, but remove a president who they know they cannot defeat in an election less than a year away. At times, some of your colleagues have been critical of my actions without giving me the benefit of the doubt or the chance to explain. I am disappointed, but I have a thick skin and realize there can be mistaken, immediate reactions to false or exaggerated criticisms from a largely hostile press. I assure you, despite the false rumors and exaggerations of reality, everything I did was to defend an innocent man, in this case, the President of the United States, not only from false charges, but from a deliberately planned conspiracy to prevent him from being elected, and then the insurance policy to remove him by false charges and illegal methods. And the bold there is his bolding that. This current attempt is undoubtedly another effort to carry out the coup, and the attack on me, which is false, malicious, and unrelenting, is because I have had the temerity to call attention to the tip of the pay-for-play pattern in the Obama administration. The Biden situation is not limited to Ukraine, but instead extends to other places where Biden was Obama's point man. In fact, everywhere Biden was point man, the Biden family happened to enrich themselves. Iraq and China are two other notorious examples. Indeed, this conduct of monetizing Biden's office by his family seems to go way back to his early days in the Senate. When asked, his 40-year cover is to say he does not know his family's business dealings. However, after the third imitation of Kay Corleone, "Don't ever ask me about my family's business," such an absurd excuse becomes clear evidence of his guilty acquiescence in his family becoming millionaires by selling his office. His response is also quite often like a cheap thug. That is the way he acted with President Poroshenko. More recently, his demand on September 29th that the media keep me off the air showed an extraordinary entitlement to preferential media treatment, and his even more recent threat to Senator Lindsey Graham, in which he said the senator, quote, "will regret his whole life," unquote, is like he's playing out a grade B remake of The Godfather. He does this because he has been enabled by a predominant media that has ignored this pattern of criminality which has played out for over 40 years right in front of their eyes. Consider that when he brazenly announced his strong-arming of President Poroshenko, none of the self-acknowledged geniuses at the Council on Foreign Relations even raised an eyebrow if their eyes were even open. Contrast that to the reaction of the Trump conversation with Zelensky, which has no threat, no pressure, no conditions, and no quid pro quo. Unlike Biden's "I'll make you an offer you can't refuse," the Trump-Zelensky conversation was entirely cordial, friendly, and agreeable, but is being used as the basis for impeachment. Meanwhile, Biden hasn't even been investigated. If you need any other evidence of how corrupt the self-satisfied establishment insiders have become, not a single one of the very impressed with themselves audience members listening to Biden connected Biden's bribery to the December 8, 2015 New York Times article. That article excoriated Biden for the conflict of interest he had due to his totally unqualified son being paid by one of the most corrupt businesses in Ukraine. And this was all happening while Biden was point man to end corruption. The allegations against Biden are highly credible. An admission, 3 witnesses, tapes, and documents. Contrast that to what we watched this past week. There's actual proof here. The conduct, if true, notice he puts that little thing in there because he needs to. He's a prosecutor and he has to say that because people are innocent until they're proven guilty, right? So that's how our law works. So the conduct, if true, is corruption at the highest levels of both the American and Ukrainian governments. President Trump was fully justified and legally obligated in requesting this important investigation of very serious criminal allegations because no one else had the courage to do so. And he has the ultimate responsibility to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. And that's from Article 2, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution. The corrupt conflicts and actions of the Biden family made the United States' efforts to deal with the corruption pure hypocrisy. Indeed, all of Schiff's hearsay witnesses have made corruption in Ukraine that much worse by turning their back on the corruption that took place in 2016. Their protestations to the contrary are pure posturing for a fawning and warped media. I will supply your staff with the 3 names of the witnesses who need visas and ask that you cut through the State Department's obstruction to make certain they can come here quickly and share their highly relevant evidence with us. I also will certainly be willing to give them the identity of the former United States Attorney who is willing to share his surprise at the failure to follow up in October 2018 to serious allegations of corruptions. Someone should find out what happened. Of course, I am at their disposal for any help they need in facilitating the relevant witnesses coming to America and also in uncovering and bringing to the American people the full scope of this scandal. The enablers will fight back and try to destroy those of us who reveal their long-term pattern of corruption. But be confident, all those real people outside the swamp know this has been going on for a very long time. As it is revealed, many will say, we always suspected that this is why they are so alienated from D.C. As it is revealed fairly and people held properly accountable, be assured trust and faith will be restored in a government with one standard for all Americans, which is the rule of law, right? The rule of law, signed by Rudy Giuliani. Okay, so that is the situation. Now, Rudy put this out on Twitter, so everybody has seen it if you have Twitter. And he says, I discovered a pattern of corruption that the Washington press covered up for years. I'm also going to bring out a massive pay-for-play scheme under the Obama administration that will devastate the Democrat Party. Do you honestly think I'm intimidated? I mean, this guy has guts. The mafia couldn't kill me, so no, I'm not worried about the swamp press. And truth alert, the statement I've made several times of having an insurance policy, if thrown under bus, is sarcastic and relates to the files in my safe about the Biden family's 4-decade monetizing of his office. If I disappear, it will appear immediately along with my RICO chart. So, see, people were saying that they wondered if Trump was going to throw him under the bus. And it's like, no. Why would he throw him under the bus? Rudy's been working for Trump. Genuinely. He does have an insurance policy of his own. I'm very glad to hear that, Rudy. And so here's his witness recovery team. I mean, he really has been doing some work. And I think because he has been so vocal about it today, this has all been today, as in the day I'm recording this, which is Saturday night. So, yeah, he has really been unleashed. I think this is what's happening. And also, Graham is now put in a power position. And then I'm going to do another video that'll come out later Sunday evening. That is a letter from Devin Nunes. That's very important to know too. So just like I said, this weekend was one of those wow weekends. Everything just kind of got dumped. So that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.